Viewers, earlier today, early morning in Indian time and in the evening in America on the eastern coast in Pennsylvania, U.S. President or former U.S. President Donald Trump was addressing a campaign rally. It's a key swing state, Pennsylvania. The current President Biden also hails from there, Scranton, if I'm not mistaken, and it is a swing state. Biden had won it the previous time around, and that led him to the White House. So there you see the importance of this. While he was speaking, roughly at the beginning of his address, Donald Trump was struck by a bullet. The bullet grazed his upper right ear. It had been fired, we are told, from a shed that was adjoining the rally venue in a very rural part of America. Now, the current president, Joe Biden, was informed of this, and he reacted to it quite soon. He was also rushed into the White House from Delaware, where he was. Let's first take a look at the sequence where Donald Trump was struck in the ear by a bullet and survived.
Take a look at what happened. Take a look at what happened. Take a look at what happened. Take a look at what happened.
So we witnessed just now how Trump was hit by a bullet, and then the Secret Service formed a security cordon around him. He was then taken off the stage. However, one rally-goer was killed, and also the shooter was neutralized. Two rally-goers are in critical condition. The FBI, the Secret Service, the Pennsylvania police are all investigating this assassination attempt. They addressed a joint briefing at about 11:45 p.m. Eastern Time in the United States. Let's listen to what they said.
The first thing I want to say is that the FBI stands with the people of Butler County in western Pennsylvania, and our hearts go out to the victims of this heinous act which occurred today. This is our community, and I want to let the public know that the FBI has deployed a number of our resources, including investigative agents, our evidence response team, bomb technicians, and we have additional resources coming from other field offices, as well as from FBI headquarters, including our evidence response from Quantico, Virginia. We have intelligence analysts as well, working from our field office in Pittsburgh, working feverishly to attempt to identify the individual who did this and any motives behind why this was done. Right now, we need the public's help. Anyone who was on scene, who saw anything, who identified any information, please report that to the FBI using either the phone number 1-800-CALL-FBI or online at fbi.gov/Butler. This evening we had what we're calling an assassination attempt against our former president, Donald Trump. It's still an active crime scene. As I mentioned, we have a number of agents on scene. We also are working closely with other federal agencies, our state partners, and our local police partners as well. Again, at this time, we are not prepared to identify who the shooter is. We are close to that identification, and as soon as we are 100% confident in who that individual is, we will share it with the press.
Law enforcement, I believe, acted heroically, quickly identifying and neutralizing the threat, as well as responding to assist the various victims. The FBI has maintained the lead on the attempted assassination. PSP will take the lead on the homicide and the shootings of the other individuals in the grandstand area. And so there are a lot of witnesses to be interviewed, a lot of things to be processed. Again, I think it's too early to say that. We have one shooter tentatively identified, but we're not stopping there. We're following up on a lot of information.
So that was the Secret Service as well as the FBI, Pennsylvania police all together. They're probing this case. Our consulting editor, Srinjoy Chaudhary, remains with us. Now, Srinjoy, one aspect that really needs to be looked into is why wasn't this area completely sanitized? You've been speaking about it. Why weren't all of these buildings dominated as one would expect they would be? Because this is the very same kind of security that the current President Joe Biden would also get. So there shouldn't be any shortfall there, right?
Yes, I entirely agree with you. First of all, this shed is going to be like the book depository in Texas and what happened in 1963. Fortunately, President Trump was luckier, much luckier, and he's escaped with an ear injury. But yes, the security agencies, whoever they are, should have sanitized the place to start with, even before President Trump arrived. That's the first thing. The second, whenever there is this VVIP speaking and there is a requirement for security, you have what is called a 360-degree gaze, which means that all these agents who are with the president or with President Trump at this point should have looked 360 degrees to see something. Now, a man with an assault rifle is not a tiny object. How is it that no one just saw him? How is it that they missed him? It has to be said, though, that the reaction immediately after he fired was absolutely perfect. The shooter was neutralized, as they call it in America, and the President Trump was quickly taken away so that he got all the medical assistance that was necessary. So all of that is very good. Now the question is, who was the shooter? What kind of person was he? Where is he coming from? What did he believe in? All of that you can get very quickly. Right. You will find his house, you will look at his computer, you will trace his calls, and then we will know who he is and what he was in life.
Absolutely, absolutely. Major General Dhruv Katoch is also with us. Now, Major General Katoch, if you can hear me, what kind of armament, what kind of equipment is required to pull off something like this? Clearly, it can't be a pistol. We know that an AR-style rifle has apparently been seized from this spot. So we have an indication. But could you give us a military perspective into the kind of effort, training, equipment that is required to pull off this kind of assassination with this kind of shooting?
Yes. First, let me say that, the range was in excess of 100 yards. And to hit a pinpoint target at 100 yards, because basically he was shooting at the president's head. Now, that's a very, very small target. And then you've got to hit it correctly, which means it has to be really pinpoint precision. In my view, there would have been a telescope. It would have been a telescope. The rifle would have had a telescope sight attached with it. In the U.S., there is not much of a problem in training, really. You can just go buy a weapon, you can buy ammunition, you can go to the woods and you can practice. So to that extent, the training aspect for a person who's bought a rifle, he can train himself. He doesn't really require expertise. But even he can go to there are specific schools, etc., which are there. There are ranges which are there, and you can be trained there. So I don't think that is the important issue. They will, of course, find out where you got trained. But as far as the rifle is concerned, without a telescopic sight, I think it would have been practically impossible to have even got that close to the president. Akshay.
Definitely, it boggles the mind how such a weapon could be in a civilian's hands. But of course, in America, there is plenty of precedent for this. Like we've been talking about, it is very, very easy to purchase assault rifles, weapons of all types for sport, for hunting, for whatever your need may be. For self-defense is, one would assume, the need, but for all kinds of reasons, there are gun ranges also. There is a lot of that in the US. It is a political topic. Now, a person who is extremely relevant here is the current President Joe Biden. He was in Delaware, from what we are given to understand, when this happened. He immediately tried to speak to Donald Trump. He didn't succeed at first, but later we are told he did manage to have a phone conversation. In the morning, it is likely that he may speak on this. At the moment we are given to understand, he is going to hold a security review. He has rushed back to the White House. Let's listen in to what Joe Biden said in the immediate aftermath of this.
There's no place in America for this kind of violence. It's sick. It's sick. It's one of the reasons why we have to unite this country. We cannot allow for this to be happening. We cannot be like this. We cannot condone this. And I want to thank the Secret Service and all the agencies, including the state agencies, that have been engaged in making sure that the people and we have more detail to come relative to other people maybe injured in the audience. I don't have all that detail. We'll make that available to you. The Trump rally was a rally that he should have been able to be conducted peacefully without any problem. But the idea that there's political violence or violence in America like this is just unheard of. It's just not appropriate. Everybody must condemn it.
So that was Joe Biden. Now, the area of Butler also deserves a very close look at. Srinjoy has, in fact, been there. Srinjoy, you've driven through there a number of times. Could you tell us what it's like over there? What kind of area for our viewers to get an understanding?
Yes, of course. See, people of Butler will tell you that they live in a city, but it's a city with 12, 13, 14,000 people living there. That's the important thing. It's a very small rural hamlet by Indian standards. It's very picturesque. And what is important to note is the fact that this is a largely rural area with a very long hunting season. So every house has a rifle, a hunting rifle, perhaps not with a telescopic sight, but a hunting rifle. Definitely not an assault rifle, but a hunting rifle is there because people shoot deer all the time. You go to someone's house during hunting season, you will see a deer hanging in one of their barns. So everyone has a weapon, and there are places where you can fire. There are people who easily sell weapons to you. That's a problem that America has to solve. Otherwise, there will be more cases like this. So Butler in western Pennsylvania is a rural area, lots of weapons there, but it's also a very Republican area because, as you know, Pennsylvania is a sort of half and half state. Eastern Pennsylvania, particularly Philly and those areas, are all very blue, very, very Democrat. The West, which is Republican and rural, is mostly Republican, rural, and thin on the ground. So we'll have to see what kind of affiliations this man had. Who was he supporting? Why did he have this grouse against Trump? What was the reason? These are things that the security agencies will look at. But very clearly, weapons are never an issue. There are always weapons in America, and even an assault rifle is so easily available that is almost criminal. See what it has done.
And it's an unbelievably touchy topic there politically. No one wants to touch the gun lobbies. That is what years and years of American politics have told us. They're very, very strong. They're very influential. However, now coming back to this incident, there were a lot of eyewitnesses. Of course, this all happened in front of an entire rally. So if there are 15,000 people in Butler, you can bet that a very sizable percentage of those were at this rally venue. One was even killed, two are critical. Let's listen into what some of the eyewitnesses saw. Let's hear their narration, what they witnessed.
More like what we heard, the bullets rattling around the grandstand. One hit the speaker tower, and then chaos broke. We hit the ground, and the police converged to the grandstands. First thing I heard was a couple of cracks. Then I saw a hydraulic line. One of the speakers looked like it got hit. Then I heard, like Chris said, a couple of bullets rattling around. And then we hit the deck, and once the authorities converged, we assisted with two patients that may have gotten shot up in the grandstand, and we cleared a path for getting them out of the way. And it's just a sad day for America. Well, after I heard the shots got fired, then the hydraulic line was spraying all around. You could see the hydraulic fluid coming out of it, and then the speaker tower started to fall down. And then we heard another shot that you could hear. You knew something was. It was bullets. It wasn't firecrackers. They weren't super loud shots, but you could tell they were. You could hear it landing. The ammunition landing on metal. Yeah, it was. And then we just kind of took cover behind it. There was a farm tractor there. We just told everybody to get down. We tried to get them to move back because at that time we didn't know if we're still an active shooter. And turned around and we were concerned for President to beat Trump. And we saw him stand up, and it looks like he was really, the Secret Service really had huddled around him. And then he got up and then he gave the motion it was okay. And then after that, we were just trying to get out safely. Like what we heard, the bullets rattling around the grandstand. One hit the speaker tower, and then chaos broke. We hit the ground, and the police converged to the grandstand. First thing I heard was a couple of cracks. Then I saw a hydraulic line. One of the speakers looked like it got hit. Then I heard, like Chris said, a couple of bullets rattling around. And then we hit the deck. And once the authorities converged, we assisted with two patients that may have gotten shot up in the grandstand, and we cleared a path for getting them out of the way. And it's just a sad day for America.
So that's what some of the eyewitnesses saw. We also know that there are some who claim to have seen suspicious acts. They even say that they alerted the law and order officials that there was a shooter, that there may be something happening. And in that press conference of the joint security agencies, we did hear them admit that they are examining a number of these claims, and they knew that there was suspicious activity. So that all leads us to ask, really, and Shinjo and Major General Dhruv Katoch are with us. I'll go to Major General Katoch. Why is it that these eyewitness warnings may have been unheeded? How much is there to really check? There are not too many buildings in the area. In fact, the sniper of the Secret Service, one would say, should have been on top of the shed where the shooter actually was.
You see, I've got absolutely no doubts that as far as the site is concerned, where the former president was to give a speech, or where he was giving a speech, that entire area, I will say up to 200 meters, there should have been, if there was any high-rise building which could have looked into the venue, that should have been secured. There is absolutely no doubts about it. The entrance to that building and the roof are the two places which should have been secured. Why that was not done, I'm not very certain, because that, I presume, is a normal drill, especially carried out in the United States. If it was India, that was a drill which should have been carried out here. And I presume, the way the security forces take this duty in the United States, they should have carried it out there. Having said that, once the things are in place and then somebody says, okay, I've seen some suspicious movement there or there, the time is very short really to react because Donald Trump is coming in, the speech is about to begin, and there'll be a lot of people who may actually be talking in that manner to say, okay, I've seen some suspicious movement. It may become difficult to really check at that point of time, though in my view, every single movement should have been checked. There is some element of laxity because security personnel should have been there at least 50 meters, all at 50-meter distance from each other. And then it would have been a simple matter of really sending one of the security personnel who was nearest to that point to just go and check and have a look-see. No, that was not done, which obviously has led to this lapse. So to some extent, there has been a very severe security lapse. And I presume these security agencies in the United States will investigate and find out why it occurred.
Absolutely. In fact, there are a couple of investigations that are to happen. From what we have understood, the FBI will lead the investigation into the assassination attempt. They will be assisted by the Secret Service. The Pennsylvania police will investigate the now murder of the rally-goer and the critical injury to the two others. And then the U.S. House of Representatives will investigate how all of this happened. They have already stated, the Speaker has stated that he will be summoning the Chief of the Secret Service. And I'm guessing that the Chief of the Secret Service will have to depose in a hearing and will be asked very, very difficult questions as to how all of this happened. We also heard in the press briefing that the eyewitness accounts are something that will be looked at. Now, Srinjoy, this is over half a century from JFK's assassination. That time there weren't many videos maybe to scan through. Now, of course, everyone has a camera in their hands. In fact, before we come to you, we've pieced together a sequence of what happened from the visuals, some of the visuals that we have. Just take a look for further understanding of who was where and what was the angle of attack. So let's just take a look at what we know, what we've seen, and what we have visuals of. First of all, and the telling visual is Donald Trump was shot at. He was hit with a bullet on his right ear. The bullet pierced the ear. It led to blood being seen very evidently on Trump's cheek. He was then taken off the stage. While being taken off the stage, he thumped his fist in the air and made a defiant gesture, mouthing the word "fight." Now, the next visual tells us where this shooter had fired from. It turns out that across from this rally venue in Butler, Pennsylvania, was a shed of approximately 1 floor in height. And on top of that, here is where the shooter is. At this point, from our understanding, the shooter has already been neutralized by the Secret Service. An AR-style rifle was recovered from this location. We have another visual where there are security officials surrounding this body. We'll be playing those out also for you shortly. Let's just take a look at what this area is like. It's a rural area. There are not too many buildings in its surroundings. It's not like many U.S. cities where if a person is making a speech, there are several high locales from where potentially a shooter may have access. There are not too many around, and there is a layout that has come to the fore that tells us what the line of fire may have been. Now, if you see here, Donald Trump is addressing a rally at roughly this venue. There is a stage behind him. Trump is seated here. This is roughly where this shooter is believed to have fired from. This is the shed that we see in this visual above. And so he fired towards Trump. Trump was standing with his left profile, and the bullet hit his right ear. Trump was effectively right in. Big breaking news coming in, viewers. The FBI has now identified the shooter. We now know that Thomas Matthew Crooks, a 20-year-old, has been identified and disclosed to be the shooter at this moment. And from the press briefing, the FBI said that they believe that there was only one. They suspect that it was a lone wolf attack. And Thomas Matthew Crooks, it's hard to believe a 20-year-old is behind this. What his motive was is yet to be ascertained. But for the moment, we can tell you that Thomas Matthew Crooks is the shooter. Now,